I'm always looking for the next hi-fi product that can give me significantly better digital audio sound quality in my affordability range. So that means I'm not really specifically interested in all the stuff that's happening right now at the stratospheric price levels because it's so far beyond me, but I can still learn from it. I think that is smart. So my affordability might be in the say £2,000 to £6,000 price range, and I feel like that area of hi-fi really has plateaued for digital audio sound quality and has done for some time now. So I've always been wondering, where's the next gem of a digital product going to come from, again, to give significantly better sound quality? And maybe it's going to come from Matrix Audio, because this is their SC1 reference clock. It's lovely, isn't it? And this is one of those hi-fi products where the manufacturer might have to fight me if they want to get it back. This is my first Matrix Audio product review. But I've had my eye on Matrix as a manufacturer for some time. But I have to admit, it's since they released their new One range of products that have that really nice, you've just seen it, the really nice silver casework where they've started to really get my attention. And that is because these days I really value nicely styled hi-fi products. I think that is the future hi-fi needs, especially if a manufacturer is going to ask a lot of money from me. Sound quality alone is not enough anymore. And I actually have two Matrix 1 series products here. I have their NT1 digital audio transport that's actually sat on the rack behind me, and the SC1 reference clock that you've just seen. And of course, these are designed to be used together. Let's be honest, sat side by side, it's an exceptionally nice looking system. That does make a difference, of course, for how you feel about owning it. The SC1 as a hi-fi product is just a reference clock. That is all that it does. And the meaning of that can get a little confusing. And I'm no engineer, so I'll do my best to explain my understanding. The SC1 as a reference clock will dictate the accuracy of the digital signals for all of the digital hi-fi products that it's connected to, so ideally all of them. And in the case of the SC1, it dictates the digital signal accuracy to a ridiculously extreme, crazy high level. So that seems very cool in concept, but it can also seem crazy to even consider using one, because all our digital audio products already have clocks in them that all work perfectly well. So a product like this can seem ultra excessive. But sometimes I think excessive can be a good thing. And I'm going to use the example of Roon, because with Roon, it's recommended that you have an ultra powerful computer just to run like the music server kind of back end. And then you control that with another ultra powerful computer in like a phone or a tablet. So to have, or to use Roon, you suggested to have two ultra powerful computers just to use like a music library kind of navigation system. So when you break that down, it seems ultra excessive, doesn't it? But I bet if you're a Roon user, you don't care. You care more about the experience that you get from Roon. Like the excessiveness of it doesn't come into play. So I see the SC1 as being exactly the same. Yes, in theory, maybe it seems excessive, but if it gives us a better experience, who cares? And we know, or I know, that clocks make a difference in digital audio products, because there are products on the market today where the only difference, say, between two of them will be the power supply and the clock. And the product that has the better power supply and clock sounds better. So we know clocks are important for digital audio products, but that doesn't tell us how important they are for this kind of extreme level that we're talking about with the SC1. So I asked an audio engineer who works for a completely different manufacturer, and he's been designing audio products for more than 17 years. And I asked him how important is a clock or a reference clock. And he told me that if we're talking about like medium-ish sound quality level, well, then it's not that important. But if we're talking about like high quality sound, well then yes, of course, the clock is important. The way, or the clock's accuracy is very important. And, maybe we can all learn something from that. And it's a super simple device in a way. You have 4 independently buffered, synchronized clock outputs, meaning it can improve the clock in for 4 digital audio products to the same high standard at the same time. With the biggest benefit being, the more products that you connect to it, the better the result seems to be. And that is a really interesting one too. I had no idea really what makes a good clock, or maybe what makes one better than another. So I asked Matrix, and they told me that a better clock achieves purer timekeeping through lower temporal distortion, so minimizing timing fluctuation or jitter. A better clock has a stronger environment immunity, so better resistance to temperature and power changes or vibration. A better clock has a tighter signal integrity, so it's better at preserving the purity of its signal. And a better clock has longer term coherence, so stays accurate for years and not minutes. So those are interesting, technical jargon maybe in a way, but like theoretical ideals. And I can assume those are difficult ideals to achieve in a clock because the SC1's design seems very much geared towards kind of maximizing those ideals. And I removed the lid to look inside so you can see what I mean by this. You can see the power supply is very important here. I think that is obvious from the sizable toroidal transformer and the high quality capacitors and more. But really it's the massive, in relative terms, chamber for the clock, which I assume is for temperature management and vibration rejection. And this is massively impressive to see in the flesh because I've looked inside a lot of HIFi components and I've never seen anything this extreme for a clock in any of them. And this is all very clearly custom designed. It's a 10 MHz OCXO or oven controlled crystal oscillator, meaning there is a crystal in there that is cut in a certain way called an SC cut that Matrix say is highly complex but enables the clock to have superior phase noise, and that is measurable. And the website claims a phase noise of below minus 118 dBc at 1 Hz. But dissecting the chart more, it's also stating 159 dBc at 1 kHz, a more common audio frequency for measuring. And if you Google what is good clock phase noise, you see 1 kHz at minus 130 dBc would be classed as excellent and used for radar purposes and similar. So the SC1 is massively outperforming that, which I think is very cool to know because it's not made obvious. But Matrix do say on the website that this is a new class-leading performance, and I can neither confirm nor deny that statement or whatever it is politicians say. From a clock timing point of view, this is also measurable, and each SC1 is calibrated at the factory before it leaves and can be recalibrated in the future if necessary for free, which is great to know. And the spec for the frequency accuracy timing is 0.003 ppm or parts per million, which converts to 3 parts per billion. And I know that is a crazy good clock accuracy because I did quite a lot of research to try and find alternative clocks that have been sold, and that is significantly better than some very expensive, 20-odd £1,000 clocks that were for sale in the recent history. So this is the kind of quality level of clock that we are talking about here. None of this technical explanation or data tells us if the SC1 will be worth adding to our HIFi system or what it might do for sound quality. But I want to clarify before I speak about that, I didn't really understand any of this technical information until right at the end of this review when I was writing the script for the video. I didn't understand it at all. It's complex stuff. I had to do quite a lot of research to understand the importance of it. But I'm glad I did it that way round, because maybe if I'd known this information before I did all my listening testing, it might have influenced or biased me. So yeah, just through luck in a way, I didn't know any of it. So I was listening purely based on plug it in and listen. Yeah, what does it do for me? And I've actually been using the SC1 in my review system for around 6 weeks. And I did a little bit of initial on-off testing. But sometimes when you put something into a system, you just know that it's good, or it makes the system sound better than before. I think when you spend enough time listening to the same hi-fi gear, especially source gear, you become so accustomed to its sound that when you change something, the difference can be perceived just by like a second nature. Even if you're not really paying 100% to it, I think you instantly know if you like it or if you don't. And when I added the SC1 to the system, I noticed 2 key sonic changes. And the first one is what I'm going to call timing clarity. And I actually did some initial testing using some very simple pieces of music. One of the tracks I used was the intro track from the Squid Game soundtrack, because it starts very, very simple. And with the SC1 being used in the system, I could just hear more clearly what was going on. It's just like instruments, simple instruments being played. And I felt like I could hear more clearly what the instruments or the player of that instrument was doing, like how they were like tapping the notes and how they were tapping the notes along an instrument rather than just tapping the same note repeatedly. That is like what I'd class as like a timing clarity difference, where you can just hear more deeply into the music what's going on. So I suppose it just is clarity. Resolution could be another way to describe it. So that was a clear, distinct improvement with the SC1. I liked it, but if that was all it did, I don't think I would be quite so enamored with it as I am. But what I did appreciate is that it improved the clarity without a penalty to something else. So it wasn't like I was getting more clarity at the expense of some bass. So that I liked. But the bigger difference the SC1 made to the sound of the system was improving the soundstage, or the way the music is layered and organized front to back in my room. This seemed to be massively extended. So the soundstage seemed to be much bigger or much better, much more organized, far more expanded. And I noticed this really a lot with music that is very complex or intense. And that music could be modern, heavy compressed stuff from Lady Gaga, or it could be audiophile classical stuff. It really didn't matter. The improvement or the effect was the same. And that is a really big one for me in a small listening room, because any product that can give me a greater sense of kind of like soundstage expansion is huge for me, because I don't have that much physical space in the room for that to happen naturally. So to like expand that music out, for it to become more free of the speakers, become more 3D, become right out to the listening position, and the way that's layered front to back. And we're not talking about that happening for like crazy well-recorded audiophile music. We're talking about that happening for a lot of music. And that's why it impressed me, because I listened to a massive selection of music. So that was the big difference maker for me. But accompanied with that, the timing, the clarity timing, all of a sudden music felt perfectly well timed. And that seems a silly thing to say, because I already feel like the system I was using here with the HIFi Rose products already had what I probably would have called perfect timing. However, even with perfect timing, sometimes in music, when it is really intense, when it is really kind of like compressed or layered very intensely, sometimes music gets a bit mushy, doesn't it? It feels like it compresses on itself. And I would have blamed the recording quality or the music production quality or the mastering of that song. When actually, sometimes it is, of course, but other times it's just the digital timing of the system, because with the SC1, all of a sudden, sometimes that track would like become like this. Doesn't happen anymore. It just layers really organized and really perfectly. So perfect timing is probably, it seems like an unachievable thing, but more perfectly timed music with that better soundstage, with that extra clarity, that's what the SC1 brought to the party. And you can see why that is a significant improvement. So this was testing the SC1 with two HIFi Rose digital audio products, the RS130 source and the RD160 DAC. So essentially that was the whole system. So the whole system was being synchronized by the SC1. And the HIFi Rose products make that really easy because it's very easy to engage the external clock or disable it. So listening testing, A/B testing was really quick and really easily. So of course that was testing like a whole system being synchronized, but I thought it was also important to test individual products because I thought maybe in your system you might only have a CD player that would accept external clock. Maybe your streamer only accepts it, or maybe your DAC, or maybe just your network switch. So I wanted to do some testing of just the individual Rose products to see how, I suppose it's then just a better clock. What does a better clock do for a digital transport? What does it do for a DAC? So I set aside a couple of days to do some serious listening testing, expecting this to be difficult. But it only took me one song to hear the difference. And I picked that song completely at random for like an ultimate test. You know, this was not going to be a cherry-picked track. And the track happened to be True by Spandau Ballet. But not the album version, one off of a Now compilation CD that I had ripped to the internal storage. So totally at random. And I had forgotten how good True is by Spandau Ballet. I mean, it's an absolute banger of a track, isn't it? But it does remind me of an Only Fools and Horses episode, and I wonder if anybody will get that reference. Listening first to the SC1 on both HIFi Rose products, this track sounded great in the main. Very big for the soundstage, with music coming right out into the room with a lot of insight and detail. But most important was how very nice and smooth flowing the music was. And I was really enjoying this track for how it made me feel to listen to it. The bass was great, the vocals was great, and there was not too much to complain about. Then with the SC1 off, so both Rose products using their internal clocks, the sound change was like how I mentioned before. The track sounded, I'm going to say, more kind of flat or 2D presented, so less fully 3D kind of extended out into the room. It kind of shrunk down. The soundstage seemed to kind of shrink down a little bit, which is really quite a significant and interesting difference. I also noticed maybe a slightly warmer sounding presentation, but I don't think that was from a tonal shift. I think that was more from just like a little bit more kind of congestion where the music kind of sits on itself a little bit more, just a little bit more, and that makes it sound a little warmer. But the bit that I noticed most was like the flow of the music. It had now become like a little bit more edgy, a little bit more mechanical, more digital sounding. And then the weird one was the treble. Now there was already a little bit of like etchiness to the treble anyway in the track, but that was now really kind of jarring, really stand out to me as like, I'm not sure I like that. It wasn't like that before. Now it was like, yeah, that's a really unpleasing, jarring way to present treble. So yeah, I don't understand that last difference, but look, these are the differences I heard, so I'm just reporting them as they are. So for me, True sounded night and day, massively, significantly better with the SC1 in the system, like night and day better. And I know that's very big, grandiose language to use, but sometimes it's the right and appropriate language to use. But how much of this was coming from the SC1 improving the DAC or the SC1 improving the source? I actually expected it to make the biggest difference on the DAC, so I started by engaging the SC1 for the DAC on its own, so then using the internal clock in the source, so in the RS130. And interestingly, True sounded about the same in terms of the general music tonal presentation. So the treble was still that little bit extra glary that I didn't like, and the music just didn't have that same nice, silky, smooth, flowing nature to it. But that sense of like three-dimensionality, like extension to the soundstage, was nearly all the way back. And that is like a significant difference. Like once you've heard the way that kind of music kind of forms in the room, like the way that now it feels like more, it just feels right when you hear it like that. So that was now mostly back, but like other things weren't quite right. So interestingly, I would say from an effect to the DAC point of view, it's mostly, it helped the RD160 improve its soundstage, like the expansion of the soundstage. So that was significant, but I don't think it made enough difference on its own for me to recommend it, to warrant adding the SC1 to the DAC. Not for the cost, it wasn't enough of a difference. So next I tested the same track, but with the SC1 engaged for the RS130, so using the internal clock of the DAC. And I think in terms of me enjoying the true track, this made a bigger or more obvious improvement. And I was definitely not expecting that at all. Because with the SC1 engaged for the streamer, that lovely, smooth, flowing nature, like that romantic flowing nature that obviously True is supposed to have, like the lovely, graceful flowiness of it was back. Most importantly, that etchy treble was gone, and it's still there a little bit, but it's like back to being just part of the music rather than this horrible jarring thing that stands out. So like in terms of just sitting and relaxing and enjoying that track, I could do it much better with the SC1 on the source. So that was interesting. Like I didn't expect it to be that much difference there. So as a recommendation for like, should you or could the SC1 be a good addition at its cost for just the transport? Interestingly, I would say I think people would think so, yes. Like the difference it makes. It's like enjoying music is the most important thing. So yeah, that was really interesting. But it also made me think, how much was that affecting the test of the DAC? But this testing really showed to me, I suppose, that it's the accumulative effect, or really, I think, the full synchronization to the SC1 where you see the biggest difference or improvement, or where it really makes the most sense. So if you can connect it to multiple digital audio products, you do seem to reap a bigger reward. And that also makes sense from a value proposition point of view too, because if one cost can improve multiple devices, that cost gets divided by each of them. So this all just makes common sense. And maybe that is why master or reference clocks are used in studios. And that's something that I've seen written maybe 1,000 times, but I didn't really understand it sonically anyway before now. One big negative, I think, of a product like this is its compatibility, because not every HIFi product is designed to accept an external clock signal. And I think probably more are designed not to accept one than are designed to. So like that's the first kick in the testicles for an audiophile here. It's like, does your gear, does your current HIFi system even allow you to use an external clock? And that is exactly the reason why I used the HIFi Rose system to review the SC1 and not a Matrix system, because I wanted to know, how versatile could it be? How could it fit into alternative systems? But look, how much is it going to kick you in the crown jewels with its price? So the SC1 costs £5,400. So that is a lot of money. And there are not that many different clock products on the market to judge that price against. So I was looking at clocks from brands like Esoteric, because Esoteric is a very famous Japanese high-end manufacturer famed for making external clocks. I've listened to them as well. They're ridiculously good, but they can cost, £18,000, £28,000, so significantly more. If Matrix are true, or their claim is true, that they've given us, a new industry standard or leading clock quality, even in one or several key areas, and the price of it is coming in at less than Esoteric's entry-level clock, their G05, well then maybe that price is easily justified by the market. So maybe you can see now why I've been so kind of, struck by the SC1, because I really like how it looks. I've really enjoyed, what it's been doing to my reference system in my HIFi system. And it's been making significant differences in areas that really appeal to me, because it just improves the listening experience. And that all comes from, not from its data, not from its measurements, none of that technical jargon. It comes purely from the listening experience. How special is that? Because I'm all about making that HIFi system listening experience special every single time. And it's interesting how HIFi products, they can get you on that kind of emotional level where you'd fight a manufacturer to get it back, because going back to the sound quality before this, I think would be more painful than getting punched in the face a few times. So it's amazing how that kind of emotion comes out in you, and the HIFi products can bring out that kind of ridiculous emotion in you that would dictate your logic in terms of thinking. But that's just how much I like this, that much of a difference that has made for me. So look, I appreciate not everybody looks at HIFi in quite the same extreme way. So if that's you, I hope you've still enjoyed this video. I hope you still learned something maybe about the importance of clocks. And if you have enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to see more.